Good morning and welcome to our last weekend of 2024 together. What a year this has been. But today we are not looking back. We are looking forward. It's now an official This Week in South Florida tradition, the last program of the year. Every South Florida county mayor, Miami-Dade, Broward, and Monroe joins us right here all together for a big collaborative look at plans and priorities and challenges and concerns we are all facing across South Florida heading into 2025. So welcome Miami-Dade Mayor Daniella Levine Cava, Broward Mayor Furr, and Monroe County Mayor Jim Scholl all together. Love having you all here together. Eternally grateful. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Glenna. Glad to be here.
All right, so
thanks, Glenna.
we are going to talk about some really big deals for everybody. And of course, the headline of 2025 is going to be affordability. And that's a pretty big subject. But I think the subhead to that for everybody is going to be how to afford housing, the house, the apartment, the insurance, the assessments. So Daniella Levine Cava, Miami-Dade Mayor, why don't you kick us off with a little bit about how Miami-Dade plans to ease that burden?
Well, thanks so much, Glenna, and I completely agree with you. I've said affordability is our Achilles heel. We are recovered post-pandemic, and with it, the housing prices shot up sky high. So New York prices without New York salaries, unfortunately, and the gap is huge. We've already been addressing it aggressively. I declared over 2 years ago an affordability crisis, and we've doubled the amount of money in our budget for affordability, for affordable housing and workforce housing. We, of course, have a surtax program, which others don't have, which is very fortunate for us. And we are cutting ribbons and doing groundbreakings multiple times every month.
You know, that brings up a lot of, the other side of that coin is development. Furr for Broward County Mayor, the condo situation across South Florida. I know you can all speak to all of this, and please do. Yeah. The condo situation for so many condo dwellers is going to be very difficult when this coming week, new assessments come due, the bills grow. How is Broward handling that?
That's a tough one. I mean, for all of us, for those people that have those condos that are getting hit with those assessments, that's a bill that they didn't plan on. And a lot of them have been there a long time, a lot of older residents, and they're having to figure out how to do that. The state, I hope the state will go back and look at a way to phase that in a little bit, to phase that requirement. Obviously, it's needed. You need to make sure that you're doing the maintenance on a regular basis. But the state needs to kind of give them a little bit of leeway, I think, or at least a little phasing, because to do it all at one time, we're seeing a lot of people asking us for help. And we, when we looked at the amount of money that would take, you're talking in the billions. And that's a hard one to do.
Yeah, we've been talking to a lot of the state people at the end of the year who are pretty adamant about letting things play out. Doesn't look like any help is coming from the state, but we'll see. Jim Scholl, I really was so fascinated by a resolution that the commission in Monroe just passed about extending hurricane evacuation times for the purpose of allowing thousands of more units in Monroe County. How does that work?
Well, we have a unique situation down here in that we are an area of critical state concern. So our development, any of our building permits that we would get come from Tallahassee. They have oversight of our development speed that we could do it. And right now, all of the communities down here, the unincorporated Monroe County and the 5 municipalities will be out of building permits by the middle of 26 if we don't look at ways to get additional permits, which we think back when the area of critical concern started, and also the timeline was based on evacuation time, or the amount of building we could do. And it was a 24-hour timeline. But things have improved since then, although there's traffic everywhere in South Florida, and we talk about it, but we've always been able to evacuate people when they needed to evacuate. And with better weather forecasting, better roads, and of course, safer vehicles and all of that, we think that adding 2 more hours to the evacuation timeline, which is the metric used to determine how many permits we could get, should allow us to build more workforce housing, which is the #1 priority down here in
Yeah.
Monroe County.
I guess you all agree on that, workforce housing. I mean, people with a lot of
Absolutely.
money can afford to live wherever they want. Workforce is the issue.
Well, if
Yeah,
I
that's go ahead, Danielle.
Sorry, Dean. So we have the Special Assessment Loan Fund, which is an innovation that has made a difference for hundreds already, where we provide up to $50,000 over 40 years, zero interest, to those making up to 140% area median income, which is a middle class income. So many have been able to, using surtax dollars again, keep those apartments, not lose them, not have to sell out, because they didn't have the savings to deal with the special assessments. Another thing we're doing that hopefully others can replicate is that we're preserving affordable housing. So we have a grant program. Again, we're using our funds that we've, American Rescue Plan dollars as well as surtax, where we say we will pay you money to fix up your apartment rather than turn it over to market rate or luxury, and you keep it affordable for 30 years. So those are a few of the things that, among others, that we're doing for affordability.
Yeah, we're on kind of on the same track, and we're trying to build as much as we can on affordable housing. Our entire commission, this is our #1 priority, because we know we need it for our workforce, and we know that a lot of people, you want your kids to be able to stay in the county, and if they can't afford to have a house, they're going to find someplace else. So I think all of us want to find a way to bring, down the price, but that means building the supply as well as building the workforce.
Yeah.
So we're going to be doing both, but
That-
we're putting as much money as we can toward that, and changing the zoning where needed, TOD where we can, to allow for more workforce housing and affordable housing.
How does how is
go
the
ahead.
Live Local Act? Does that play into this a little bit? I know there was a big issue. I mean, that's a coin with two sides, workforce housing, but sort of usurps local zoning. Do you see foresee any problems with that?
Only in the areas where they try to kind of game the system a little bit.
In South Florida,
general,
really? Gaming the
I
system
know,
in
I know.
South Florida?
Imagine that.
Whoever does
Imagine
that.
that. I think the intentions of that act are good in trying to find places to build affordable housing. But if you start taking a historical property that's on the beach and try to say, this is a place for Live Local, then you're kind of going against the grain of what I think we're trying to do.
Yeah. All right, well, sit tight, because when we come back, all three mayors just back from this year's climate conference in Key West plans to keep South Florida above water in 2025 is next. Welcome back. As you see, we are with all three South Florida county mayors for our big collaborative look at 2025. Let's talk about resiliency. All three mayors all together recently at a climate conference in Key West to talk about that big issue for all of South Florida. Jim Scholl, Monroe mayor, first question on this to you, since you were the host mayor. There are always plans for all three counties facing resiliency. I know there are actually resiliency officers on the case, but there are some very specific plans in the Keys this year. Take us through them.
Well, we've been fortunate to be able to do the planning and the work necessary to apply for funds that are available through the federal government and the state to harden the infrastructure, get the adaptation going, because we have times of the year down here with the king tides where we have neighborhoods, primarily up in the northern part of the Keys, that flood every day during high tide. So we have road projects going in Twin Lakes and Stillwright Point, and those projects have been funded and are underway. And we have other neighborhoods where we're doing these projects. The first two are pilot projects, and then we'll go from there to figure out the best way to elevate the roads to be able to provide the necessary services in the neighborhoods, and at least have them have the mailmen and the trash trucks and anybody else that needs to get in the neighborhood on a recurring basis be able to do so for the next 40 years. So it's a complex project to be able to do that and meet all the environmental compliance rules, but we have started. And along with that, we've already done projects on US 1. As you know, there's only one road in and one road out for all of the Florida Keys. And we need to make sure that that road is being hardened in certain areas so that it does not flood.
Yeah, you know, you mentioned king tides. Increasingly, I think so many neighborhoods in South Florida have been seeing flooding even on sunny days, even during not king tides. Furr, I know the flood control plans in Broward, there is a fairly new master plan for flooding.
We are about to unveil the vulnerability assessment plan that we've been working on for about 3.5 years. And it's been a huge effort by our staff, looking at all the hydrogeology of the entire region, looking at the unified sea level curve, and what that's going to mean for us, to what we're going to have to do, how many seawalls we'll have to build, where we might have to make two-way roads one way to allow for water capture, all those kind of things. It's a major blueprint that we're going to be looking at. We'll be looking at that on a workshop on February 4th. But I think it's one that we're gonna, at least it's a blueprint. Here's how we can go forward.
Yeah.
So that's, I'm looking forward to seeing how it's accepted or looked at, and we'll go from there.
Daniella, Levine, Cava, Miami-Dade mayor. Miami-Dade there's so many cities who do their own thing on flood control, elevation. A lot of debate on elevating neighborhood roads. I know. What's on tap in 2025 as far as flood control goes?
First of all, we've recently passed legislation on the impervious issues. So we say you can't build and flood your neighbors. So you have to take responsibility for water on your own land. And that is critically important as people build higher or they use pumps and whatnot, that we have to take the whole neighborhood into account. And of course, yes, people are building taller, and you could just see the results, especially with storm surge. We have a Back Bay project with the Army Corps, which is designed to protect from storm surge. And then we also have flooding that comes from the extreme weather events. We are working through our Department of Emergency Management on flood protection, prevention, and across the jurisdictions. We do have 34 cities. Each one is responsible for their own stormwater management, and stormwater drains, of course, affect flooding, whether you can get the water off the streets, but we can't overwhelm our sewage system, which is what also can happen, and then lead to pollution in the bay. So it's all about protecting. We also, because of all of the resilience projects, FEMA awarded us with a reduction in our community rating system score from a 5 to a 3, which led to a 35% reduction in flood insurance costs for the unincorporated parts of the county. So we're working with our cities to coordinate all of our response and to bring those kinds of savings as well to others.
I left out the biggest thing that happened, actually, is we finally got the CSNF study with the Army Corps of Engineers and the South Florida Water Management District. We put up $5 million, and the South Florida Water Management put up $5 million to do the study that will be the precursor to actually going from a gravity-fed system to a pump system out in the Everglades. All those 18 structures. That's the key to holding, managing the flood in this area. So to get that finally going, and that was huge. So that's big.
Yeah. Excellent. Jim, Scholl, Daniella had mentioned don't flood your neighbors, and that made me think of some stories that we have done here over the last year about particular neighborhoods in Monroe County, in the Florida Keys, that are experiencing exactly that problem. One neighborhood floods because of the development all around it. What can be done? What is being done about that?
Well, in the neighborhoods up in the Key Largo area, fortunately, the land that the houses are on is higher than the roads. So right now, we're not having too much problem overall with neighbors flooding neighbors. Occasionally, it happens if they put some fill in, if they're building something new, but the vast majority of it is not new building. It's just the roads have sunk down because of erosion underneath during the tide. So So the major problem is elevating the roads, but we have to be a good neighbor and not shed the water onto the housing, the homes that are adjacent to the road. And that can be very difficult with very narrow right of ways. So a lot of this is storm sewer work as we adapt the roads.
Are in all three counties, are developers generally amenable to taking that kind of direction and changing and bending and flexing with their plans?
We're actually
Where our
requiring,
development is down to very small numbers right now because we don't have the permits.
In the
Sorry,
case, yeah.
go ahead.
Yeah.
we actually passed a future conditions criteria where they have to, and not so much on exactly that, but they have to build according to what sea level rise is going to be many years from now. So they have to be thinking way ahead of not what sea level is now, but 50 years from now.
Good to think ahead, don't you think? Daniella, go
What's
ahead.
that?
Add that you have people who understand market forces and demands. So I think we're seeing increasingly that developers are wanting to build in a way that will protect the dollar value of people's investments, and that hopefully the public is demanding it.
Right.
We hope. All right,
Yeah.
Up next, here's the question. Bridge, bandwagon, or team tunnel? Trains, buses, and double-decker highways. South Florida county mayors weighing in on the crunch to commute in 2025. Stay tuned. We are back with our year-ender with the county mayors, looking forward to 2025. Some plans, some predictions. Want to start this segment about something we all have in common, getting from one place to another in South Florida. And sometimes not a fun time. Start this segment with Broward County Mayor Furr, because Mayor, on your list of priorities, I saw that you're going to decide finally the bridge versus tunnel question over the New River, or across or under the New River.
Right.
And also finalizing things with Brightline for commuter rail through Broward. What can we expect?
Well, there's a lot of coordination here, and with Miami-Dade's been a little bit ahead of us. We're starting to catch up a little bit, but they've got, that the commuter shuttle going up Brightline, I think, has been on everybody's wish list for 20 years, and it's very close to being able. I think it's pretty close to happening. We're doing it in chunks from the New York River down to county line, and where we can meet up with Miami-Dade. Obviously, the next point is, do we go over or under? My own opinion is that I don't think we can afford to go under. That would use so much of our surtax money that the rest of the county wants and needs. And I don't think we'd be able to get the federal grants for it. So I know Fort Lauderdale would like, well, hopefully we can build consensus there, because I'm chair of SEFTEC, which is Palm Beach, Miami-Dade, and Broward, and all three. To be able to have all of us to be able to travel back and forth on all three counties would be great. One thing that just happened in November for those three counties, we just finally passed an interoperability the operation things that allows anybody who gets on a bus anywhere in Palm Beach, Miami-Dade, or Broward can now go anywhere else in all those counties.
Oh, you left Monroe out of that one.
It does. I don't think it's part of the. It's not part of that. Sorry, Jim.
It's okay.
We're gonna get you in there though somehow. But there's no transfers needed, no anything, and that's a big step. So if we can start to be thinking regionally on a lot of these issues, it'll go a long ways.
Yeah. Oh, transit is definitely a regional issue. Daniella, Levine, Cava. I know last time we were here all together a year ago, we were talking about bus rapid transit, and there's so much work that has been done on that network. And now you have a commission that seems to be telegraphing they are really into rail. What's going to happen with that?
Well, everyone's been into rail. That would have been ideal. A one-seat ride, just extend the metro rail. Obviously, that costs more money than other options and does require federal support. We were very fortunate during this administration that we were able to move forward on some of the corridors. So we have the Northeast Corridor, Brightline, where we're in the president's budget. We're assumed we will get those dollars, and in the state budget to build out local commuter stations up and down the Northeast. That's what Beam was referring to. We also have our bus rapid transit. It's all electric. It's the largest electric bus rapid transit in the world, 20-mile corridor, and that is going to be operational this coming year.
So is that, do you think, is that going to be a fight? Is that going to be a fight over dollars, do you think, coming up this year? How to keep extending? I mean, the plan is there, right? I mean, the plan is there and in motion. Do you foresee anybody trying to add or subtract to that?
We don't know exactly what the new administration's approach to transit will be, but we have been assured that the Northeast Corridor is solidly there. So hopefully that's true. A lot of work has gone into it. We're also completing studies on the North Corridor going up to Hard Rock Stadium, and that eventually would also go to Broward. That would be an incredibly important route as well to connect the counties. And we do have service to the Keys. We have bus service. A lot of employees go from South Dade to the tourism establishments because housing is so extremely expensive in the Keys. So these are all, it's not just trains. We actually have grown our transit ridership, which is unprecedented across the country since the pandemic. We're up 10% pre-pandemic levels because we've been very inventive. We've added last mile solutions, something called Metro Connect, on-demand services, as well as rerouting buses after 40 years to go more frequently the places that most people need to go, including more evening and weekend service. So it's not all about trains. We have to be adaptive as well and have dedicated bus routes that zoom by the traffic.
Yeah, you know, I think one of the biggest dilemmas for all of South Florida into the future is how to get people out of cars, to provide that not only incentive but the service to get people out of cars. That's a hard thing to do. Jim Scholl, I was floored when I found out how much of the Keys workforce gets there from bus from the mainland. And, you know, that's got to be a difficulty for the Keys.
Well, it is, and Mayor Cava spoke very well about it. You know, we've got the bus that comes from Miami all the way down to Marathon down here in the Keys, and then the Lower Keys shuttle, which is actually managed and operated by the city of Key West, runs the route from Marathon down to Key West and all the stops in between. And while it does work, the problem with the transit in all of Monroe County is it's just infrequent, so it's not efficient enough for those that would want to get on a bus, go to a job, or go to shopping, or out to eat, or go to visit a tourist attraction. It's not frequent enough, so it's not efficient enough to support that. So we have a transportation director now in Monroe County who is working on coordinated solutions with all of the current providers, and then adding more frequent and more efficient service. Including that first and last mile piece. You know, obviously with one road, it's pretty easy to figure out the route you have to run. But once you get to the branches off, then it gets harder. So that's all in work in Monroe County, and that would help out significantly with reducing the day-to-day congestion during peak times. So it's in work, and I'm sure we'll continue to coordinate with Miami-Dade and the bus connection there.
Traffic knows no borders, right? All right, coming up, some trash talk with the mayors. More people, more waste, and big debates over how and where it should all go. That's next. Welcome back to Trash Talk with the County Mayors. I may rename this whole show for this. No doubt where to put South Florida's trash and waste and recycling. That is such a big debate at the end of the year going into this year. Daniella, Levine, Cava, Miami-Dade Mayor, I want to start with you because as the year comes to a close, the debate over where Miami-Dade's new incinerator, or if it will be an incinerator, is so hot right now and keeps changing. Right now, back in Doral to a big backlash. So take us through what 2025 holds for that process.
Look, this has been really challenging, and it is a critical moment for all of us. We're producing twice the national average of waste. We need to get a hold of that. We need to reduce our waste, refuse, refill, recycle, etc. But in the meantime, we do have to deal with the trash. So we only have limited capacity in county landfills. We have been trucking or training the trash up to the middle of the state, as I know my neighbors also do. But we have studied and do believe that the modern waste to energy facilities are safe for people and the planet. And we have also agreed to look at landfilling additional possibilities as an option that the environmental community has asked us to do. So it's a very critical time. We do have multiple sites that we explored. Really, for financial reasons, Doral made the most sense because Doral is going to be asked to contribute to any additional costs for moving it. And so the commission will decide. They've now set a February meeting. There'll be a January workshop, and we'll produce an updated document with all of the additional things we're exploring.
So we're not breaking any news right here, right now, I suppose. Not yet.
No, ma'am.
Okay. Being Furr, Broward Mayor, I know, again, on your list of priorities is that solid waste master plan and a recycling center at the landfill?
Yes, it is. As you probably know, Broward has put together a solid waste authority, and we expect our master plan to come to fruition somewhere around mid-spring. Within that is trying to figure out where to put 9 million pounds of garbage. And that's a lot of garbage, as Daniella is mentioning. There's an urgency to this, though, that doesn't usually that I don't think most people know about. And it comes with the amount of methane that comes out of the landfills. I went to COP28 in Dubai last year, and it was like the third main generator of methane gases, behind the energy, transportation, all that, cows, and
wow.
then cows, and then landfills. So what we are going to be doing is trying to take all the organics out of the landfills that we generate, at least the one in Monarch Hill in Broward, and make it a dry landfill. That means we're going to have to figure out a way to compost all of the food waste, which is about 34% of our waste stream. That's a lot of stuff to figure out. But that means that's going to require source separation at schools, at airport, seaport, hospitals, dedicated fleets, all those kind of things. So it's ambitious, but it's something I think we can do. But the reality is we have to, because if we don't, that's what's causing the whole planet to warm up a lot. So if we want to have a planet here, or if we want to have a state here, we're going to have to do those kind of things.
You talk such a big picture, and I think the thing that really torques homeowners is when their trash is not picked up. And so what a great thread that you've just woven all the way through that. Jim Scholl, the Keys garbage gets trucked out, every day? You don't even, there's nothing in Monroe County that deals with the trash, right? This is an out-of-town thing.
Well, in its final destination, yes, we've had landfills in the past. They're all closed down here in the Keys. So it's transfer stations down here. So all the residential and all the commercial and all the recycling gets taken to our transfer stations, where it's put on trucks and it's hauled out of the Keys every day from the entire length of the Keys. And of course, with the offline, the incinerator offline up there on the mainland, it's making it more difficult to have locations to take the solid waste out of the Keys. And we're looking at extending it up into Central Florida. And there's discussions, I think all of us, with potentially having to put it on rail cars and take it out of state if we don't have the capacity available to us in South Florida. So it is a big challenge. We're always working on trying to improve the recycling. the mixed waste with all of the tourism related industry down here, the restaurants and the attractions and those things, and lots of tourists add to the complexity of the waste stream down here. So we are working on it and trying to make it as efficient as possible.
Yeah, Daniella, Levine, Cava.
Mention about composting. I compost at my home. It takes a lot of waste out of the system, but we have a porous substrate. Our water table is very close to the surface. Our environmental folks are very concerned about contaminants that are in composted material. So we're working on a pathway forward, and we know many want to, and we do want to compost at scale, but we do need to address the concerns about polluting our water system as well.
How are residents in the counties, how amenable are a significant number of residents to perhaps changing their trash habits to accommodate more progress?
I think that's going to take a lot of education. I mean, I think Palm Beach spends $4 million a year just on education. And it's going to require that. If we're going to change habits, we're going to have to let people know why we're doing that, but what it entails. If you go to a European airport, you're seeing 4 or 5 bins where people are putting different things in different ways. We're not doing that yet. And when they talk about zero waste in Europe, they're talking about not doing it at landfill. They're actually recycling, but they're also doing those very modern waste energy plants that are capturing the carbon, capturing the methane. And we're going to have to be looking at all of those different things. But the residents, they just want it picked up, and I understand that.
Out of sight, out of mind.
Out of sight, out of mind. But we're having to figure out the other part of it, like Daniella mentioned, the contaminants, all those kind of things. It's a complicated issue.
We do have a zero waste consultant coming on board, and a very big part of that consultation will be education. And we're going to work with our community groups, our schools. There's a lot of interest with young people to divert waste and change habits.
Well, and Glenna, we've hired a recycling coordinator down here in Monroe County to do exactly what my colleagues have been talking about, provide the education, build the habits, and reduce the waste down as much as possible, but to recycle as much as we can.
I think we're also starting to realize a lot of times recycling is based on profit, but as a county, as a government, we can do it for the service. We don't have to be making a profit on those things. All of glass, for instance, often there's not really a profit in that, but there's lots of things that can be turned back into. It can be turned back into sand. It can be turned into all kinds of different things. You can build seawalls out of it. So we have to find. This is a part where it may be a job maker in trying to create a circular economy with all of these different things that we recycle. That's what I think Broward's hoping for, and I think this is one of those regional opportunities where we use each other's feedstock to be able to build jobs and industries.
I love that, and I think we're going to have endless amount of reporting for my colleague Louis Aguirre and his "Don't Trash Our Treasure" segments. So that's great. Okay, sit tight. We have a little bit more to discuss, because with the new year comes obviously a new president. So how big changes in D.C. may affect Miami-Dade and Broward and Monroe counties, planning and predictions with the mayors? That's next. Welcome back with the county mayors. We want to talk a little bit about big changes that may be coming down the pike as far as some plans out of DC. But Daniella, Levine, Cava, we were trash talking a little bit, and I know we ran out of time, but I really am interested in the project that you all are working on that I'd like to hear about real quick.
Right. Every challenge creates an opportunity. And so we were designated as the climate tech hub for the Americas. And we've received $20 million. We're investing in clean concrete that produces less carbon and also absorbs carbon, 3D printed seawalls, what to do with sargassum on the beaches, HVAC, jobs that don't require college degrees and are more energy efficient than traditional AC and so on. So all of this is good for the environment, and we're creating good jobs, well-paid green jobs. This, I hope, is going to be something that our future administration will continue to support.
That would be great. That's a Yeah, 2025 story right there. Okay, switch gears a little bit for me here. Jim Scholl, Monroe County Mayor. You know, of all the things that we're hearing, the incoming president forecast immigration is the big headline for South Florida, and on so many levels. And the Keys is right on, that's the tip of the spear right there on some changes that it sounds like are coming.
Well, the Keys have been a migration stopping off point for years. We have many of the folks coming through Cuba that end up here, a lot of them from Haiti coming here. And of course, it's all part of managing the migration and the immigration process. We've got multi-agency efforts going on, not only law enforcement, military, and interagency folks trying to stem off the flow of the illegal migration. And it does have an impact. And we're still having people get to the United States coming in illegally in the Florida Keys. But the operation that's been going on for the last couple of years, Operation Vigilant Sentry, has really provided more reconnaissance and more interdiction at sea with the Coast Guard assets to repatriate these folks from their home countries. And in Monroe County, we're up between 20 and 25% of the school students in Monroe County are English language learners. So that's an impact that a lot of folks don't even recognize, and,
Right,
and that's
in all South
a big
Florida
expense
schools.
and takes a lot of resources.
Yeah, that is a South Florida school issue right there. So you're talking about, you have the national security part of this. There's also the mass deportation threats. And while incoming President Trump says the criminals will be the first in focus, there are countless families in South Florida right now wondering what's going to happen to families that have possibly even one undocumented member, the dreamers who are here, the people who are, you know, trying to work and live. Daniella, Levine, Cava, that is a significant number of families in Miami-Dade.
Absolutely, and also mixed status. Like you say, you have families, some are here with more permanently than others, including some that were born here. So we understand that we need to have our borders secure, that we need to have orderly immigration. There was a bill that was proposed that was stopped a while ago that was bipartisan. Hopefully we can have some significant immigration reform. But at the same time, we do need to make sure that we have an orderly process and that we're not overwhelmed.
Is the county making any plans, laying any kind of framework for plans about that?
You know, we've worked hard to make sure that those who are paroled into the country were provided with some interim support through the federal government, emergency assistance programs. Again, these are people that were legally authorized to enter. And so that has been in the past. Another big area for us is TPS, temporary protective status. We have many who are here from countries where it's not safe to return. Dictatorships, in many cases where they have been directly targeted, these individuals, they're pending asylum claims, legitimate ones in many cases. So these are concerns that we have, and some of the TPS status is expiring within the next few months. So everyone's waiting to see if this administration will be renewing that status, or it is considered that perhaps in the new administration, depending on the country of origin, there may be an appetite for TPS for some of those individuals.
Yeah. And again, with this issue, this knows no South Florida borders, being Furr, Broward Mayor, Broward experiencing the same kind of thing with so many families, and also industries like tourism. You're opening a new convention center, hotel, tourism, agriculture. What is Broward's take on this?
Well, I mean, in addition to what Danielle and Jim just mentioned, when I think of what the possible labor shortage might be, we already have a serious labor shortage in Broward County for all the hotels. And when I think of not only the labor shortage in the tourism industry, but also when I think down in Homestead and everywhere that's growing food for this entire state, those are serious issues. if you really, tear apart that labor market, I think you're going to see some real, dysfunction in the economy. So I'm concerned about it.
Construction
Yeah.
and
Construction, yes.
So are
Yes.
are any of the counties doing anything proactively, not even knowing what's to come, really? I mean, that's the truth, but is there any kind of proactive framework being laid to mitigate that?
Well, I just want to say we're not new to immigrants coming to our
Right.
communities. And we have a very substantial network of organizations, many faith-based, that provide for individuals that need assistance. We have, we have an office that supports people, again, with legal status to obtain jobs in the economy. So, we're going to continue to support those who have a legal right to be here.
Yeah, we put a lot of money into legal aid and those kind of things to help people get through the process so that they can stay here.
And our Monroe County representative for the Florida Food and Lodging Association has lobbied hard to at least get temporary work permits for these folks that are here that can support that industry for tourism, primarily down here in Monroe.
And was that done primarily because of what changes may be to come, or is that a standard operating procedure?
Well, this happened over a year ago. It started with, we've got all these folks here, they want to work, we have to have a pathway for them to be able to work legally.
Right.
And to move those applications quickly for temporary
Right.
work permits, because we
Yeah.
have the jobs, they want to support themselves. And that's the most effective way to deal with those who are here with the ability to legalize their status. And we know not only do they fill important jobs, but they contribute to our economy.
Yeah. Miami-Dade Mayor Daniella, Levine, Cava, Broward Mayor Furr, Monroe County Mayor Jim Scholl, you are so great to be here for our conversation today. I love ending the year with you, and I am so grateful. Happy New Year to everybody.
Happy New Year, Glenna. Thank you.
And we will be right back. That is a wrap for today and the new year. Links to all the programs and interviews to see and share and our This Week in South Florida podcast, all right there on local10.com. And all you have to do is scan that QR code and it takes you right there. On behalf of all of us here at This Week in South Florida and Local 10, thank you for being part of our family here. Have a beautiful New Year's, and we will see you right back here in 2025.